Well, hello again, friends, and welcome back to Royalty USA. I am James Carter, and oh my goodness, do I have some tea for you today? Real tea, hot tea, the kind you did not see on the evening news, but absolutely deserves to be talked about, because sometimes the most interesting moments at a royal event are not the ones happening at the podium. Sometimes the most fascinating moments are the ones happening just slightly to the side of the podium, caught by a camera in a split second on the face of a woman who has spent years perfecting the art of saying absolutely nothing while saying absolutely everything. I am talking about Melania Trump, and I am talking about a moment at the White House welcome ceremony for King Charles and Queen Camilla that has people all across America hitting rewind on their televisions and saying, "Did you see that? Did you catch that look on her face?" Let me set the scene for you, because context is everything, and I want you to feel like you were right there on the South Lawn. It is a beautiful April day in Washington. King Charles and Queen Camilla have just arrived for their historic state visit. The flags are flying, the military bands are playing, everything is picture perfect and ceremonial and grand. And then President Trump steps up and decides to make a little joke. Now, you know Donald Trump. He has never met a microphone he did not want to have a little fun with. And standing there in front of the King and Queen of England, in front of cameras broadcasting to the entire world, he decides to talk about marriage. Specifically, he decides to talk about his own marriage. He pointed to King Charles and Queen Camilla and mentioned what a beautiful thing it is that they have been together for so long. And then he mentioned his own parents, Fred and Mary Trump, and said they were married for 63 years. 63 years, he said, with a kind of admiration in his voice. And then he turned it into a joke. He said that was a record he and Melania could never match, and he nodded at their 24-year age gap and the fact that he is about to turn 80 years old. The crowd laughed, King Charles smiled, and the cameras, doing what cameras always do, swung immediately to Melania's face to catch her reaction. And what they caught, friends, is something that has been replaying on social media and news programs ever since. Melania gave what can only be described as the most precise, most controlled, most carefully constructed stiff smile you have ever seen in your life. Not a laugh, not even a warm smile, a smile that lasted exactly as long as absolutely necessary, and not one single second longer. And then, and this is the part that everyone is talking about, she turned. Deliberately, gracefully, but very deliberately, she turned her body away from her husband and toward Queen Camilla. As if to say, I am done with this particular moment, and I am choosing to be over here now, thank you very much. Now I want to be fair here, because James Carter believes in being fair. Some people are saying, oh, it was nothing, she was just turning to greet the Queen, it meant absolutely nothing at all, and that is entirely possible. Melania Trump is a woman who has spent years in one of the most scrutinized positions in the entire world. She knows where the cameras are. She knows how to present herself. Every movement she makes in public is deliberate and considered, and she is not a woman who does things accidentally. So when she turned away in that particular moment, right after that particular joke, you can understand why the cameras noticed and why people are talking. But here is where the story gets really interesting, friends, because this moment did not happen in a vacuum. It happened against the backdrop of something else entirely that was going on at exactly the same time. Just one day before this royal welcome ceremony, Melania Trump had released a very strongly worded public statement, and it was not about the royal visit. It was about Jimmy Kimmel. The late-night television host had made a joke about Melania at his mock White House correspondent's dinner monologue. He said she had a glow like an expectant widow, which was a reference to the age difference between her and the president, and Melania was not having it, not one bit. She put out a formal statement calling Kimmel's words hateful and violent rhetoric. She said his monologue about her family was not comedy. She said his words were corrosive and that they deepened what she called the political sickness within America. She said that people like Kimmel should not have the opportunity to enter American homes each evening to spread hate, and she called him a coward, saying he hides behind ABC because he knows the network will protect him. And she ended with the words, enough is enough. It is time for ABC to take a stand. Strong words, very strong words. Donald Trump echoed them, calling the joke despicable and calling for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired immediately. Now, Jimmy Kimmel, being Jimmy Kimmel, went on his show and defended himself. He said the joke was a lighthearted roast and that it had been completely misinterpreted. And then, because he is Jimmy Kimmel, he turned around and made more jokes about the whole situation, which I imagine did not go over particularly well at the White House. But here is the thing that everyone is pointing out, and I think it is a genuinely interesting observation worth sitting with for a moment. On the very same day that Donald Trump and Melania were publicly and very aggressively demanding that a television host be fired for making a joke about Melania and their age difference, on that very same day, Donald Trump stood at a White House welcome ceremony for the King and Queen of England and made a public joke himself about his own marriage and his own age difference with Melania, in front of cameras, in front of the world, in front of the King of England, and Melania gave him that smile. Now, I am not here to tell you what to think about any of this, because that is not what Royalty USA is about. We are not a political channel, and I am not going to sit here and tell you who was right and who was wrong. What I will say is this: there is something very human and very relatable about that moment, regardless of your politics. Most of us who have been in long relationships, who have been married for years or decades, know that particular smile. We have either given it or received it. That smile that says, "Honey, we are going to have a very interesting conversation when we get home." That smile that says, "I love you, but right now is not the moment." That smile that says everything without saying a single word. And what makes this moment so fascinating from a royal watching perspective, because remember, this all happened at a royal event right in front of King Charles and Queen Camilla, is the contrast it created. Because on the other side of that moment, you had Queen Camilla, standing there warm and gracious and completely at ease, a woman who has also navigated her fair share of public scrutiny and difficult moments and years in the spotlight, a woman who has been with King Charles through everything, and she handled every second of that ceremony with the kind of effortless dignity that comes from decades of practice and genuine partnership. The contrast between the two women in that moment was not lost on anyone watching, and I think that is partly why this story has captured so much attention, because people instinctively compare. They see Queen Camilla and the way she carries herself beside the king, and then they look over at Melania and her frozen smile, and they notice the difference. Now again, I am not saying one is better than the other. I am just saying that cameras catch everything, and people notice everything, and the royal visit gave us a front row seat to one of the most fascinating moments in recent White House history. There is one more layer to this story that I want to share with you, because it adds a certain weight to everything I have just told you. This feud with Jimmy Kimmel and the royal welcome and all of it, it happened in the same week as a genuine security scare at the actual White House Correspondents' Dinner. A gunman exchanged fire with Secret Service agents outside the event. Both President Trump and Melania were present at that dinner, and so when Melania put out her statement the very next day calling Kimmel's joke violent rhetoric, that word violent landed differently, knowing what had just happened at that event. You understand how raw nerves might be. You understand that what might seem to outsiders like an overreaction to a television joke might feel very different to someone who was just at an event where shots were fired. Context, friends, always changes things, and I always want to give you the full picture because you deserve that. So what do we take away from all of this? Well, James Carter thinks a few things. First, royal events have a way of revealing things. The cameras were there for King Charles and Queen Camilla, as they should have been, for a once-in-a-generation historic moment. But the cameras captured something else too, something unscripted and entirely human, right there in the middle of all that royal ceremony. And those unscripted moments are often the ones we remember longest. Second, Queen Camilla was, as always, absolutely magnificent. She is a woman who has earned her place, and she wore it beautifully every single moment of this visit. Third, sometimes the most interesting royalty is not actually about the royals at all. Sometimes it is about what happens in the room around them. And this week, oh friends, this room was full. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Royalty USA. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up It truly helps this little channel more than you know. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that red button right now and join our Royalty USA family. We are growing every single day, and I am so grateful for every single one of you who pulls up a chair and shares this time with me. Leave me a comment below. I read every single one. And tell me what you thought about that moment. Did you catch Melania's smile? What did you think it meant? I want to hear from you. Until next time, God save the King, God bless America, and James Carter, we'll see you very soon.